questions. Mueller has dozens of questions that he allegedly wants the president to answer. Okay, coming up, we will reveal the special counsel's most insane and ridiculous questions and why this report is full of crap. And we'll also show you how Team Mueller is trying to set a trap for the president. And also, according to new congressional report out, a group of secret donors, they paid huge dollars, millions of dollars, to take down President Trump after you elected him. We'll explain that. I also have my questions. Now, while Trump remains the focus of this intense legal speculation, our two-tier justice system is totally ignoring crimes from Hillary Clinton, James Comey, Andrew McCabe, and so many others. So stay tuned. We have a list of serious crimes that, in fact, really need to be investigated. And we'll have the very latest from James Comey's Trump derangement tour. The media's latest blatant display of bias is off the hook, and an important update from the caravan of migrants demanding entry on our southern border. Sit tight. It's time for tonight's breaking news opening monologue. All right, we start with the Fox News alert. There is absolutely zero evidence that President Trump ever colluded with Russia in any way, shape, manner, or form. And now, desperate to find anything, something on President Trump. Now, late last night, the New York Times released a report allegedly detailing questions that Robert Mueller wants to ask Trump before the investigation concludes. If any of these leaked questions are true, be warned. Mueller is laying a huge perjury trap for the president of the United States, which means two things. One, he has nothing. And two, it proves everything I've been saying about him and Andrew Weissman and company. Two of America's top attorneys are now sounding the alarm. Watch this.
The questions are very inartfully drawn. They are written as open-ended questions. They're not cross-examination questions. They're not sharp questions designed to confront and test. They're really designed to let him ramble and talk. And I suspect that's the strategy of the special counsel, because they know that may be President Trump's weakness. If they were to ask him direct, tough questions to which he can answer yes or no, that might not give them the advantage they're seeking.
The questions are an intrusion into the president's Article 2 powers under the Constitution to fire any executive branch employee, to ask questions, as Mr. Mueller apparently proposes to do, about what the president was thinking when he fired Comey or Flynn or anybody else is an outrageous, sophomoric, juvenile intrusion into the president's unfettered power to fire anyone in the executive branch. It is a symptom of how ridiculous this appointment was by Rod Rosenstein when he made the appointment with no evidence of a crime.
Joe DeGeneva, Alan Dershowitz are exactly right. This is a perjury trap for the president of the United States, and even more frightening are the contents of this inquiry. Now, note all the questions that include the term, what did the president think? What did the president think about James Comey? What does the president think about Jeff Sessions' recusal? What does the president think about the special counsel? Well, I have a question for Robert Mueller tonight. When did thinking or thoughts ever become a crime? When did the United States start regulating what may or may not be in a person's mind? Are we now going to criminalize thoughts? This list of insane, juvenile, ridiculous questions goes on, including one question about a statement to our friend Maria Bartiromo, the president's reaction to news reports and what discussions Trump had about terminating the special counsel. Excuse me, he never terminated him. And again, more questions about the president's thought process. Now, remember, this is supposed to be, originally was supposed to be about Russia collusion, an investigation, not some persecution of the president on ridiculous thought patterns. Rush Limbaugh captured it well today. He said the president should only agree to a Mueller interview if, in fact, President Trump gets the Hillary Clinton treatment. Let's take a look.
If Trump could secure the same identical circumstances that were granted to Hillary Clinton, then why not sit down for the interview and answer the questions? But, of course, I speak facetiously because everybody knows that Donald Trump is not going to get the Hillary Clinton treatment extended by James Comey.
You know, not under oath, not recorded, pretty much meaningless. Send in a pro-Trump person like Peter Strzok interviewed Hillary. That's right. If we have a fair system of justice, President Trump should absolutely get the Hillary treatment for any interview with the FBI. And just like Hillary Clinton's interview, after the exoneration was written months later, well, Trump's interview should be conducted not under oath, not recorded, not be transcribed, and the exoneration written months in advance. And oh, yeah, someone with a pro-Trump bias, let's say me, I'll conduct the questioning. Now, if Hillary Clinton, how about Rush or the great one, Mark Levin? Good idea. Now, if she gets the Clinton treatment, anti-Trump FBI agent Peter Strzok for the interview, maybe, I don't know, we have a good choice of people. Lots of conservatives that can interview him. All right, none of this is ever going to happen. We know that. We now know, sadly, in America, we have a two-tier justice system. We don't have equal justice under the law, equal application of our laws. While the president is targeted in a totally off-the-rails witch hunt, Hillary Clinton, James Comey, Andrew McCabe, all these other deep state actors have never been charged with a crime, despite mountains of evidence that we have. For example, despite her total exoneration from the FBI, application of our laws. While the president is targeted in a totally off-the-rails witch hunt, Hillary Clinton, James Comey, Andrew McCabe, all these other deep state actors have never been charged with a crime, despite mountains of evidence that we have. For example, despite her total exoneration from the FBI, our friend, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, who will join us tonight, he has revealed multiple serious crimes that Hillary Clinton should be charged with, starting with 18 U.S.C. 793, mishandling, destroying classified documents, 18 U.S.C. 1505, the obstruction of justice. You remember BleachBit, deleted emails, busting up devices. No charges over the multiple crimes related to her campaign's shady practices surrounding the Steele dossier. Next up, let's look at James Comey. Well, he's not under any criminal investigation as of now. Shouldn't he at least face scrutiny over 18 U.S.C. 641, the theft of government property or records after he took his Trump memos outside of the FBI? What about 18 U.S.C. 1924? The mishandling of classified information. And remember, when James Comey lied to Congress about not signing off on Clinton's exoneration letter months before that interview took place, that's against the law. 18 U.S.C. 1621. And we got Andrew McCabe. House Republicans have now referred McCabe, as did the IG, for multiple crimes over lying to the FBI. And McCabe was fired for lying to the FBI. Let's see. Oh, General Flynn. Why hasn't he been charged with a crime in this case? Now, of course, don't hold your breath for an investigation into Loretta Lynch, Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, or any of these other anti-Trump deep state actors. Now, what's behind this, sadly, in the United States of America today is a two-tiered system of justice. It is simple. The deep state hates who you chose to be your president. They are hell-bent on seeing Donald Trump delegitimized and hopefully on their side removed from office. Obviously, that means they don't want him to succeed. And that would mean even if Americans suffer in the process. Now, breaking this week, a group of wealthy secret donors, get this, they poured as much as $50 million into an investigation of President Trump after his 2016 election, based on the dossier. Now, this is in the House Intel Committee report. Get this. These top secret anti-Trump donors even utilized the services of Christopher Steele, the foreign national, the author of the dirty dossier that we now know is filled with Russian lies. Now, without a doubt, this deep state is conducting a full-scale political attempt to take down this president. And perhaps the most pathetic deep state actor of all, James Comey, well, the guy that refused to come on this show, I offered him 4 hours of airtime. He's continuing his anti-Trump book tour, and he's actually claiming that Trump's criticism of the deep state is dangerous for the country. How dare he? How dare he be honest? No president has faced this before. Now, Comey also took some time to fantasize about what if the deep state's choice, his choice, when in fact he exonerated Hillary Clinton when he knew she committed crimes and wrote the exoneration before investigation. But he's thinking, but what if Hillary had actually won? Take a look.
What would your life be like if she'd won?
I also don't know the answer to that. I think I would still be the FBI director. And the reason I say that is, someone asked me to compare the two, and it's too hard for me to compare the two, except Secretary Clinton is someone deeply enmeshed in the rule of law, respect for institutions, a lawyer. And so given that background, I'm reasonably confident that even though she was unhappy with decisions the FBI had made, she would not fire the FBI director as a result. But look, again, I don't know that for sure.
No, I don't even think she would have kept you around. Now let's turn to another anti-Trump actor, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. Now the Freedom Caucus chairman, Mark Meadows, who's been on this show a lot, along with several other House Republicans, they have drafted articles of impeachment against Rosenstein over the extremely slow release or just flat out obstruction regarding subpoenaed documents related to the Clinton email investigation and, of course, the dossier and FISA abuse and the Russia investigation. Now today, Rosenstein fired back, trashing Congress. Congress has a constitutional duty and authority of oversight, Mr. Rosenstein. I would think you read that in your Constitution. Take a look.
They can't even resist leaking their own drafts.
Would you care to elaborate on that?
I saw that draft. I mean, I don't know who wrote it. There have been people who have been making threats privately and publicly against me for quite some time. And I think they should understand by now the Department of Justice is not going to be extorted. We're going to do what's required by the rule of law, and any kind of threats that anybody makes are not going to affect the way we do our job.
And Congress is going to do their constitutional job and demand you hand over the documents they have subpoenaed a long time ago. Congressman Meadows responding on Twitter, writing, if he believes being asked to do his job is extortion, then Rod Rosenstein should step aside. You read that in your Constitution. Take a look.
They can't even resist leaking their own drafts.
Would you care to elaborate on that?
I saw that draft. I mean, I don't know who wrote it. There have been people who have been making threats privately and publicly against me for quite some time. And I think they should understand by now the Department of Justice is not going to be extorted. We're going to do what's required by the rule of law, and any kind of threats that anybody makes are not going to affect the way we do our job.
And Congress is going to do their constitutional job and demand you hand over the documents they have subpoenaed a long time ago. Congressman Meadows responding on Twitter, writing, if he believes being asked to do his job is extortion, then Rod Rosenstein should step aside and allow us to find a new Deputy Attorney General, preferably one who is interested in transparency. And I'll add also the law. Now, also breaking tonight, Chairman Bob Goodlatte, Chairman Gowdy, they are requesting more information from the Justice Department surrounding fired FBI Director Comey's friend, Daniel Richman. He's the guy who used his special designation in the FBI to leak information to the press, which, of course, we know Comey wanted. Is Rosenstein going to cooperate on this one? I'm not holding my breath. Now, next up, we have yet even more examples to bring you from the abusively biased press in this country and their age-old tactic called bias by omission. And according to a report from Newsbusters tonight, on Monday, well, network news broadcasts, ABC, CBS, NBC, guess what? They completely failed to mention South Korean's President Moon suggested was used by ABC and NBC to mock Trump supporters who started chanting in Michigan, "No bell, no bell," during his rally over the weekend. And while the media is not ignoring Trump's serious progress on the world stage, which they always do, they're mourning the tragic plight of the caravan of migrants at our southern border that want to enter this country illegally, that don't respect our sovereignty. Take a look.
Crisis at the border. A caravan with more than 100 migrants seeking asylum arriving at the U.S. border with Mexico, but told there's no room.
And this is literally the end of the road for these migrants. You can see them camped out here by the dozens against the morning chill. They are literally sleeping up against the border terminal.
Border showdown. The standoff escalates over that caravan of migrants from Central America. Denounced by the president, they're now at the U.S. border. Will they be turned away?
This a caravan of Central American migrants traveling for more than a month is at the U.S.-Mexico border trying to cross. U.S. officials are trying to keep the group of nearly 200 people out. They want asylum, but have not been allowed to start the application process.
Now, what the media is failing to emphasize is the Department of Justice has filed criminal illegal entry charges to 11 members of this caravan, including one felony charge to a person who was previously deported. Now, many of these migrants scaled the border fence in California, look at that, after making their way from Central America unabated through Mexico. Mexico that routinely throws people out or throws them in prison if they enter illegally from El Salvador, Nicaragua, or Central America. These images you're watching, the wall climbing, the attempt to illegally cross the border, is a clear and obvious indication of how many of these migrants value our laws, respect our sovereignty. And what's worse, Mexico's total inaction. It shows what kind of so-called ally we're dealing with south of the border. Here's the reaction to this monologue. Fox News contributor Sarah Carter, criminal and civil rights attorney and defense attorney David Schoen, and Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. Greg, considering we sided with you, the comments of Dershowitz, the comments of Joe DeGeneva, this leak, which I know part of which is not true, but trying to get into the mind of the president the way they are with those ridiculous questions.
These questions look like they were prepared by a first-year law student who flunked out for being patently stupid. Most of the questions are either irrelevant because they're an intrusion on the president's executive privilege, or the questions are, as you point out, the thought police. According to Mueller's theory of the law, if the president so much as dreamed about firing the special counsel, Mueller would prosecute him for obstruction of justice.
Let me go to David Schoen. David, I agree. This is juvenile. The idea that maybe the president thought, okay, I have a lot of thoughts about some people, a lot of which are meaningless if they're not followed by any action whatsoever.
The questions are problematic on a number of levels, but what they make clear is the following, which we've said over and over and over again. There is one agenda here. That is to get the president before Mr. Mueller in order to charge him with obstruction of justice or perjury. Those people in Congress who are considering this Protect Mueller bill really must rethink that. This is the wrong time. It shouldn't, besides being an encroachment on Article 2, and it is certainly that, it never should be considered. Mr. Comey, in his book tour, made clear, consistent with these questions, that the agenda, he said, how would he prosecute Mr. Trump? The questions that he had in mind are the very same thing. Get him in front of you so you can charge him with obstruction of justice. That's the abuse of the special counsel regulations that were passed. They create a whole new class of charges so that Mr. Mueller unilaterally can charge the president with perjury, obstruction of justice, intimidation, or anyone else who he believes or wants to believe is interfering with his so-called investigation. It's very dangerous.
Sarah, let me go to the attack today by Rod Rosenstein as it relates to Mark Meadows and the Freedom Caucus. And let me add one other thing. Rosenstein actually said that there are serious consequences if, in fact, the FISA courts were lied to and if it was found that they were false. Didn't he sign off on one of those renewal applications? And didn't he just implicate himself right now?
He implicated himself and he implicated Comey. And that's a very important question, Sean, because this is something that they're going to be taking a look at. We know the Inspector General, part of his reports are going to be looking directly at that, the FISA application, what was in that application on Carter Page, and the people who signed it. They should know better. They should have thoroughly read through that FISA application. They should know exactly what they're signing off on, and it shouldn't just be ignorance.
Who do we know signed off on those applications? We had the original application.
That's right.
All right. Then we had the 3 subsequent applications. That's a year. And,
that's right.
And Comey still says he has no idea what was in the dossier. The bulk of the information used to obtain that warrant.
And Comey says, and not only does he say that, he said he didn't even know. Remember that he couldn't even say that Hillary Clinton campaign and that the Democratic National Committee actually paid for the dossier. He kept trying to blame the Republicans, even though we have evidence out there that in April, when the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC took over with Fusion GPS, then they hired Christopher Steele, that former British spy, on the dossier. I mean, there's one lie after another after another. And as for the extortion bit that Rosenstein tried to say
Who were these guys signed off on an unverified, uncorroborated Russian dossier that never told the judges in their applications, renewal applications, Greg Jarrett, this is a year's worth of lies.
Well, it was Comey. It was.
He actually paid for the dossier. He kept trying to blame the Republicans, even though we have evidence out there that in April, when the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC took over with Fusion GPS, then they hired Christopher Steele, that former British spy, on the dossier. I mean, there's one lie after another after another. And as for the extortion bit that Rosenstein tried to say,
who
the
were
Congress
these guys
is doing
signed off on an unverified, uncorroborated Russian dossier that never told the judges in their applications, renewal applications, Greg Jarrett, this is a year's worth of lies.
Well, it was Comey, it was McCabe, Sally Yates, and Rod Rosenstein.
Well, then how can he appoint Mueller if he signed off on one of the FISA warrants?
And how can he sit in judgment of deciding whether or not a case should be brought against the president when he, Rosenstein, is a key witness in the case in the firing of Comey?
How does he
He's conflicted. He should have stepped aside and recused himself.
How does he reconcile himself to his own comments today that if, in fact, the FISA applications, if there's false information, there are serious consequences?
Right.
He signed one that had false information, or at least unverified.
Rod Rosenstein has no business being the Deputy Attorney General. Hell, he doesn't have any business being a lawyer. If he doesn't understand the fundamentals of conflict of interest, then, he is violating all kinds of codes of professional responsibility, and he shouldn't be a lawyer.
David Schoen on Rod Rosenstein and his own words today. When he signed one of those FISA applications, and if I'm right, and Sarah, bear me out on this, he signed the last one, and they still don't know. Remember, it was Deputy McCabe. The FISA application, there wouldn't have been an application without the dossier.
Right. Look, this has to be investigated, but your viewers should know that these applications you're talking about are asking a very secret special court, only created in 1978, to authorize the most broad intrusion on the lives of Americans and others that's possible under the law in a secret procedure. That's right. I want to say one other point about these so-called questions that are out there. If this really were for informational purposes, there's absolutely no reason that questions of that nature couldn't be put to the president in writing and couldn't be responded to through a lawyer proffer rather
Would
than
you ever
having
let
Mr.
Donald Trump talk to this team that Mueller's put together? I would never allow it.
Absolutely not, and no criminal defense lawyer worth his or her salt ever would.
It's an
abusive committee
trap.
with an agenda.
Yes. I'll give you one example that it's a perjury trap. Mueller wants Trump to recount the conversation in the Oval Office with Comey. If the president were to deviate just one word from Comey's account, Mueller would charge him with perjury.
Last word, sir.
Absolutely. I mean, he should not speak with him if he doesn't have to. And John Dowd was right, his former attorney, when he fought them on it and said there's no way the president is going to answer these open-ended questions.
Thank you all. All right, more breaking news. A live report from Ed Henry, and later tonight, Roseanne Barr, a blunt message for her anti-Trump critics, and so much more. All right, here now with some breaking news from the White House. More on the Washington Post breaking story that Robert Mueller threatened President Trump with a subpoena. We have Fox News chief national correspondent, our friend Ed Henry. Big news tonight, Ed.
Yeah, that's right, Sean. The Washington Post basically saying this happened in early March at a rather extraordinary meeting. Robert Mueller raising the possibility of a subpoena to compel testimony from President Trump in this Russia collusion investigation. There would be constitutional questions over that, and the case could go all the way to the Supreme Court. Fox confirming that John Dowd, then the lead Trump attorney, told Mueller, quote, "This is not some game. You are screwing with the work of the President of the United States." Now, I've spoken to some in the president's orbit who are furious about this leak. They think Dowd may have put this out there along with last night's leak about Robert Mueller's list of questions. Dowd, in a phone call tonight, denied that to me. Others in the president's orbit saying maybe the president wants these leaks out there so everybody's on the same page about exactly what Mueller is asking. Plus, the White House can use these leaks, as they did today, to say all of this is a witch hunt. The bottom line is the list you've been talking about of over 40 questions is so broad that people close to the process are telling me tonight it makes it less likely the president will ever sit for an interview with Mueller. The president, as I noted today, charged it's a witch hunt. He railed against the leaks. Insiders here focusing on the part of the New York Times story saying this list of questions from Mueller was compiled by the president's lawyers, led at the time, as I noted, by Dowd, after a series of consultations that Dowd, you see him there, had with Mueller. Dowd tonight told me, quote, "It's not me, pal," insisting he is not leaking this information out. But he left the president's legal team earlier this year after concluding that Mueller's long list of questions could put the president in legal jeopardy if he sat for an interview. This leak, widely seen as an attempt to sabotage any interview. The Times added that the leak was a person outside the president's legal team, meaning it would not likely be the White House lawyer Ty Cobb or new outside lawyer Rudy Giuliani, who basically replaced Dowd since they are currently on the team. While the president has said he wants to do an interview, I told you some of his advisors now telling me tonight it's less and less likely because they see this as a pile-on. Mueller pressing for answers about the president's interactions with James Comey, General Flynn, Attorney General Jeff Sessions, plus questions about whether he communicated with lawyer Michael Cohen about real estate deals in Russia, which would seem to cross that red line the president talked about last year about how he did not believe it would be fair for his business dealings before he was president to be investigated. Meanwhile, last point, Republicans Trey Gowdy and Bob Goodlatte today are trying to probe some of James Comey's leaks, sending a letter to Sessions and the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein seeking documents on one of Comey's friends, Daniel Richman. You remember him. Comey used him as a go-between to release some of his memos. Rosenstein today said that he's not going to be extorted by, that's the word he used, these articles of impeachment against him being drafted by House Republicans. I can tell you Republican Mark Meadows tonight said that's ridiculous, and that Rod Rosenstein, he said, should stick to facts instead of rhetoric, Sean.
All right, and Henry at the White House, maybe you should read the Constitution. Something about checks and balances, congressional oversight is part of that. Thank you. Joining us now with more reaction, Florida Congressman Ron DeSantis, NRA TV contributor, former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino. I agree this with Greg Jarrett, David Schoen, Joe DeGeneva, Congressman. I agree with Alan Dershowitz. This is a perjury trap. This is juvenile. The idea that you're going to ask President what was in your mind is an absurdity, and it shows just how far this has gone from so-called collusion with Russia.
Well, you're right, Sean. Very few of the bullets involved the campaign. It was mostly during the transition and then during his presidency. So you have a situation where Robert Mueller, he's a DOJ employee effectively. So he's an inferior officer in the executive branch. What gives him the right to conduct oversight over basic presidential decisions that have nothing to do with any type of criminal activity? What was in your mind when you talked about Sessions resigning or this or that? He does not have a right to subpoena the president for that. I don't think the president should submit to those questions. And I agree with Alan Dershowitz, and I agree with you, Sean. I think really they're not trying to investigate a crime. They're trying to manufacture a process crime.
Yeah. Dan Bongino, no good lawyer in their right mind at this point, knowing what we know, knowing the abusively biased team like Weissman and company that was appointed by Mueller. Would any lawyer ever let this president go before this man at all? And the idea, the threats, he's threatening the president early in the process when they handed over and cooperated and never exerted executive privilege. Are you kidding me?
You know, Sean, do you see the danger in this? They are not investigating a crime here. They're investigating Donald Trump. There's a difference. You know, what you do is, I was a former federal agent. What you do is you investigate a crime and you find people. You don't find people and then go find the crime. I read the questions, and Sean, these questions are very strategic. Notice how they're left open-ended. Now, Ron's a lawyer. He can tell you this, too. This is what you do when you interview people as a federal agent. You ask open-ended questions.
No yes or no questions.
Getting them to talk,
Let
to
them
trap
chat.
them in a perjury trap. Exactly.
And
bingo.
Threatening the president early in the process when they handed over and cooperated and never exerted executive privilege. Are you kidding me?
You know, Sean, do you see the danger in this? They are not investigating a crime here. They're investigating Donald Trump. There's a difference. You know, what you do is, I was a former federal agent. What you do is you investigate a crime and you find people. You don't find people and then go find the crime. I read the questions, and Sean, these questions are very strategic. Notice how they're left open-ended. Now, Ron's a lawyer. He can tell you this, too. This is what you do when you interview people as a federal agent. You ask open-ended questions.
No yes or no
getting
questions.
Them to talk,
Let
to
them
trap
chat.
them in a perjury trap. Exactly. Bingo.
And Greg pointed this out, Congress. If there's one thing that deviates and you're on a witch hunt, there's no prosecutorial discretion. The only way it gets that is Hillary Clinton. She gets a rigged investigation. The Hillary standard is not going to apply for Donald Trump with Robert Mueller and his merry band of Democratic donors and people that withhold exculpatory evidence like Andrew Weissman. No, he's not going to. He will be under oath, unlike Hillary. He won't have a friend interviewing him like Hillary had. I mean, the double standard is so flagrant here. Do we have equal justice under the law, Congressman? Do we have equal application under the law or not in this country?
Just think about just the fact that these questions are being generated. Was there a copious number of questions that were asked of Hillary in her FBI interview? That was a perfunctory thing. They had already decided not to bring charges. Comey wrote the memo 2 months before they even interviewed her. So the lack of zealousness there and then the overzealousness here, I think is very, very striking. And look, and it should be concerning to all of us. That's one of the biggest problems with this investigation is they've been trying to nail anything they can to the wall. And of course, you and I and Dan, we all watched the Hillary case where they didn't go after BleachBit. They didn't go after Huma. They didn't go after any of it.
And how does Rod Rosenstein be one person that signs off on a dossier mandated application to a FISA court when they're lying to the FISA judges? How does he not recuse himself? Where's Jeff Sessions saying, you never should have been in this? Get out.
Sean, Rod Rosenstein was also the United States Attorney in Maryland on the Uranium One precursor case, the 10X case. This guy is so conflicted. How he hasn't recused himself or resigned at this point is amazing.
He implicated himself tonight
against Carter Page.
When he said, oh, serious consequences if there's false information in a FISA application. Well, he signed one that was not verified or corroborated, and Hillary paid for, and they never told the judge.
He needs to get off this case like yesterday.
All right. By the way, full disclosure, I do want Ron DeSantis to win and be the next governor. Unless you don't want me to endorse you, then I will take it back.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Thank you. When we come back, more breaking news. Wait till you see Roseanne Barr responding to critics upset with her for supporting President Trump. We got Waters versus Jessica Tarlow. That and more straight ahead.
As a control enthusiast.
Well, everybody had to choose for themselves, according to their own conscience, who they thought was the lesser of two evils. You know, everybody chose that, so I'm not going to put anybody down who didn't vote like me. This is America. It's a free country, and, you know, when you weigh it all together, you know, I just felt like we needed a whole new thing all the way, bottom to top.
And we got it, and the economy is changing, and look at what's happening on the foreign policy front. Meanwhile, the left continues to also viciously go after Kanye West for his support of President Trump. Earlier, in an absolutely wild interview with TMZ on our friend Harvey Levin, while West defended his praise for President Trump, took shots at the liberal group, some of the liberal groups out there in the media. Here's some of it.
It's the mob. The mob tries to tell you what to think. The mob tries to make all blacks be Democrats for food stamps and stuff. I've never been into politics. I just love Trump. That's my boy. It's like the media and the liberals and the echo chamber and all that is having the most sore loss of all time. Like that, we're gonna just keep putting out. It's like torture porn. We're going to keep showing you negative, 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 negative.
And later in the interview, our friend Candace Owens, well, she joined Kanye. Take a look.
In many ways, I feel the black community is going backwards, that we're literally going away from what Martin Luther King dreamed. He dreamed of a day where we wouldn't have these things and say, because I'm black, therefore I must think this. Because I'm black, therefore I have to subscribe to all of this. I defected from this mentality. I said, you know what? I'm not a victim, I'm a victor. And this became the most controversial thing on the internet. Donald Trump has not put forth a single policy that has harmed the black community. In fact, he's put forth many that have helped us.
All right, joining us now, he has 2 shows. Not 1, 2. Co-host of The Five, host of Waters World, and you live in it, and Boxer's contributor Jessica Tarlov. She's going to get you one of these weeks.
Maybe tonight.
It could be.
According to my people, I'm undefeated.
Which is nailed us. He said, you know, at 10 o'clock on election night, 2016, a mass psychosis and traumatic event happened in the mind of liberals. They snapped. And every day since, they wake up hating Trump, hating Trump, hating. And look at North Korea. Look at what he's doing with his relationship with China and they capitulate. Look at the economy. 14 states, lowest unemployment records. Lowest unemployment records for black Americans, Hispanic Americans, women in the workforce. Okay, these are all records. Can you just say maybe it's time to give the guy some credit?
Some credit for some of these things. I give him credit for a lot of things today.
Like
I was talking about his role in what's going on with North Korea and South Korea, and I do understand why there's talk of him.
Little Rocket Man came to the table.
Yeah. I guess that he
Would
did.
Crooked Hillary have brought Little Rocket Man to the table? I don't think so.
I don't think that you can know that, and I think we need to know what China did.
The ISIS caliphate? I don't think so. Would she have dropped the jobless rate to record
Why don't you
lows?
want to talk about Trump?
I don't think so.
Let's not talk about Hillary, because she is not president, so we can talk about
Say
Trump.
it again? What did you say? She's not what?
He's winning. He's really doing well.
He's
winning.
I think it's the suit.
Yeah, it is very nice. There are certainly achievements that he can speak for, and conservative judges as well, lowering regulations, all of that. But at the end of the day, his approval rating is not good.
Excuse me. It's at the highest point it's ever been.
Well, for him, he started in the gutter, so now he's at
the
just
only
like
rating
really
that counts
bad.
is the one on the election day.
Well,
Remember
let's
that
see what
one?
happens in 2018. I mean, special elections have favored Democrats across the board. We are white people.
Is there a problem with that?
I love older white people, but they tend to favor Republicans.
Let's not focus on race. Let's go back to what Candace Owens said about Martin Luther King.
Not focusing on race.
Let's
go to
judge people on the content of their character, not the color of their skin.
Is not good.
Excuse me. It's at the highest point it's ever been.
Well, for him, he started in the gutter, so now he's at just like really bad.
The only rating that counts is the one on the election day.
Well, let's
Remember
see
that
what
one?
happens in 2018. I mean, special elections have favored Democrats across the board. We have where we haven't won, and we've won a lot of them. We lost by 6 points when he won that district by 20, and it's full of older white people.
Is there a problem with that?
I love older white people, but they tend to favor Republicans.
Let's not focus on race. Let's go back to what Candace Owens said about Martin Luther King.
Not focusing on race.
Let's
go to
judge people
Candace
on
Owens.
the content of their character, not the color of their skin. For instance, I don't want you to judge me as a tall, athletic, successful, white, straight male. I want you to judge me by the content of my character.
Real?
That's what Kanye
You have lost
and
your mind.
Yeah.
You have lost your mind.
Did I win?
You're getting close. He's on the edge of losing. You know what I like? I always say this. I hate Bill Maher. I don't hate him. I hate his show. I watch it occasionally, and I'm like, all right, who's the dumb conservative that showed up? There's no point. And I'm looking and I'm watching this. But here's the point. I want Bill Maher to have all the freedom to say everything he wants. Same with Jimmy Kimmel. Same with Stephen Colbert. Same with everybody over at Conspiracy TV, MSNBC, and Fake News CNN. How about we just follow Kanye's example, freedom of speech. Let's stop feigning outrage over words and let America have an open dialogue, because liberals won't allow that because they want to suppress conservative speech.
I don't think that is the case. I am perfectly
What's a boycott?
fine.
Name one liberal boycotted. I can name you 1,000.
Who's boycotting Kanye Trump? Kanye Trump.
Wait.
Kanye West.
Here's the moment of the interview.
I hate to say it.
Kanye's getting death threats.
Checkmate. It's over.
No.
Kanye West is getting death threats. Why? Because he just wants to make America great again.
Kanye West is getting death threats because he has no basic grasp of history. If you look at the text messages between him and John Legend, who had to explain to him about the Southern strategy, for instance.
Why are you trying to keep Kanye down? That's not very nice of you. You should be celebrating diversity of thought. Liberals say they love diversity, but not diversity of opinion.
He doesn't understand basic history.
Wow.
What?
That is very rude of you.
But it's
Maybe
true.
he just has a different understanding, Jessica.
But it's not. There have to be facts in this
Isn't there
world.
room in the Democratic Party for diversity
There are
of
no
thought?
alternative facts. There are facts.
Listen, Kanye is a brilliant thinker. And for you to say that he should shut up,
I didn't.
I think is disrespectful to Kanye as an artist and as an American.
I just say let every person express their views and the public will decide. The public.
But that is what's happening.
That's why they voted for Trump over Hillary. And that's why Roseanne Barr, I loved it. She said, too bad in a different way.
Yeah, but that's
right,
also fine. But well, can I make my Roseanne point? Because I have a feeling I'm not the winner and I might get it. I enjoy her show very much, but Roseanne Barr's character there is not actually portraying a Trump conservative. She's pro-gay marriage. She's extremely liberal on social issues. But that's not who the Trump voter is. There was a new.
You libertarian? I don't care what people.
No, he's like, no.
I don't know what I am, Sean. I'm a free thinker.
Okay. All right. Whose world is it? Kanye Trump kind of lost it for you.
Why?
You were doing good up to that.
What's wrong with that? You should like that.
It's his world. You're living in it. All right. When we come back, explosive new information on Iran's secret nuclear program exposed by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Daniel Hoffman, straight ahead.
June 29th. This regime, the preeminent terrorist regime of our time, in which, its goons chant death to America, death to Israel, this regime had a secret nuclear weapons program, and they're trying, under a very bad deal, to get a nuclear arsenal. They shouldn't get it. President Trump is...
Tech provides the ultimate protection for your vehicle. Go to what?
This regime, the preeminent terrorist regime of our time, in which, its goons chant death to America, death to Israel, this regime had a secret nuclear weapons program, and they're trying, under a very bad deal, to get a nuclear arsenal. They shouldn't get it. President Trump has stood so firmly and so clearly on this issue, and he said that will not happen. And that is something that I fully back, and I think it's not only in the interest of Israel and the United States, that's obvious. It's in the interest of the world. This tyrannical, anti-American regime should not have nuclear weapons.
That was the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu earlier today on Fox and Friends talking about Iran's secret nuclear weapons program, as he described yesterday. Here with reaction, retired CIA senior intelligence officer and Sonoran Policy Group Vice President Daniel Hoffman. I thought that presentation yesterday was perhaps one of the biggest breakthroughs, intelligence-wise, that I have seen in my lifetime. I wanted to get your thoughts. And the fact that the Prime Minister did it without notes, I'm told, and put this thing out there, and with all of that evidence corroborated by our own intelligence, I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, well, listen, Israel is on the front lines, and they've been very good at tracking Iran's development of their nuclear program, and they're very concerned about Iran's use of Syria as a proxy force. The Iranians are building up their capability, military capability in the Golan Heights. So it was a powerful expression on the part of Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel's concern, intelligence briefing. I think from our perspective, President Trump does not want to bequeath to his successor a failed Iranian policy, similar to the one he's having to deal with on North Korea, where Iran is enriched with sanctions relief, where they've got an ICBM because that's not covered in the Iran nuclear deal, capable of targeting our homeland, and then a nuclear breakout after the sunset provision closes out after 15 years with centrifuges and enrichment of uranium so that they can break out with a nuclear weapon. I mean, that's not where we want to go. The problem is that the Obama administration left this administration with really not very good options. We can scrap the deal. That's going to carry some economic costs.